is Mike Cathie, and I'm the CEO of Nando's South Africa.
Welcome, Mike. Really great to have you today. And
thank you, Mike.
And this is going to be a lot of fun. As you know, the subject of this webinar is leading in a crisis.
Right.
We've gathered a couple of really influential people that run businesses that we all know, that have had to deal with the crisis. And as we know, everybody out there's business has been affected in one way or another. And everybody that's watching this webinar today knows that fast food business or the food business was shut down with no chance of doing much for many months.
Right.
A lot of doubt. What was your experience of the lockdown? What was how did it explain how it affected Nando's?
Well, I mean, it affected us very similarly to how it affected the entire restaurant industry, in as much as everyone had to shut down and figure out what the future was going to look like. I think what helped us tremendously was very, very early into, even pre-lockdown, when we heard that this was coming, was that we had a lot of conversations with all of our leaders to figure out how we were going to approach this thing philosophically. And the one principle we embraced was this concept of whatever we did, we wanted to, at the end of the lockdown period, feel very proud of the way that we had managed it. And I think that certainly helped us, shaping the way we thought about business, shaping the way we thought about our people, and figuring out the best thing to do for our customers at the same time.
Those kind of actions need a lot of good communication, or a lot of communication.
Yeah.
Were there any strategies? Tell us some of those strategies that really worked, and some of those strategies that maybe you would have done differently.
I think again, because of the thoughtfulness that had gone into how we were going to engage with all of our stakeholders, so our suppliers, but most particularly our Nandockers, we probably wouldn't change anything. We learned a hell of a lot about the power of our in-house radio station, Heatwave. So we used that very aggressively to engage with our Nandockers as soon as the restaurants opened. But before they opened, we made a lot of use of WhatsApp groups. And actually it was our CEO, Jeff White, came up with this principle of, he was very concerned about the fact that during the harsh lockdown, there were many people who actually lived on their own. And so this concept of each one, reach one, was developed, which was very simply understanding very clearly who the folk were who were living on their own, and make sure that there were a group of people who were reaching out to them regularly to make sure that they were feeling loved and thought about, and all of that sort of thing. But the WhatsApp group was very useful for us because we were able to engage very directly with our employees and talk to them about the fact that our business was secure, their jobs were secure, we were thinking of them, and we were doing everything in our power to make sure that we would come out of the lockdown in better shape, if possible, than we were going into it.
So it sounds to me that the biggest part of your strategy was about keeping the Nandockers, as you call them, which is your team.
Yes.
Keeping them engaged, keeping them informed.
Yes.
Your client base, which is obviously, I think Nando's must measure really high for loyalty of customers.
Right.
They were just going to come along as Nando's reopened, or as the world sort of got back to some sense of normality. Would you say that the main part of your strategy was speaking to your own people?
Definitely, number one priority was making sure that our Nandockers were always aware of what was going on and what we were thinking about and the actions that we were taking to ensure that they were as well cared for as they could possibly be, which is actually not that different to the way we normally think about our people. We also engaged very frequently with our supply partners, but also a critical stakeholder for us is our franchise partners. Without our franchise partners, we don't have a business. So it was really important for us to engage with them and similarly make sure that they understood exactly what we were going through, exactly what we were thinking about, and if we had any news coming through to us from the various government departments to share with them and say, listen, this is something we believe may be happening. This is the preparation work that we're doing in the background to make sure that we're ready to open as soon as we can. And again, making sure that they were feeling as good about themselves as they could during a very difficult period.
Yeah. Now, I presume that you had to take some pretty harsh decisions. Everybody had to.
Yeah.
What were the hardest decisions that you had to deal with?
You know, it's interesting. If you bring it back to what I said earlier on about being proud of everything that we did during the course of the lockdown, while the decisions superficially may have seemed hard, they actually weren't that hard. So, you know, we made the call to say we will absolutely pay our people throughout the lockdown. We will absolutely pay our suppliers as per our negotiated terms to make sure that they were as strong as they could possibly be. We will absolutely take care of our franchise partners to the very best of our ability, again, to ensure that they come out of the lockdown as healthy as they could possibly be. So they were tough to think about intellectually, but they were very hard to decide on emotionally because of this concept of being proud of everything that we did during the lockdown.
I suppose in a crisis, organisations pull together or they pull apart.
Yep.
But the actions you took must have actually helped to strengthen the bond between you and your stakeholders, including staff.
Yeah, I mean, it's been amazing to think about the actions that the folk have taken during this lockdown period, because we've always had a very tight, a very aligned and very cohesive organisation. But I think because of the way that everyone was thinking with a common purpose about how we were going to come through this, we have, if possible, come out of this even stronger than we were going into it. So the degrees of innovation, collaboration, thoughtfulness and consideration that we have witnessed throughout the organisation, but also throughout our broader ecosystem. So the work that we've done with our supply chain partners, with our franchise partners, etc., has been incredible. And I genuinely do think, and more importantly than what I think, we've got very, very strong feedback from our Nandokas to say we feel so proud of the brand. We feel so proud of the way things have been handled during the lockdown, and we feel really good about everything that has been done during this period for and with us.
Yes. Now, obviously, to many people that are listening to you today, including myself, I mean, one of the things that sort of jumps out at me is the emphasis is on your team as opposed to your clients in a business that has millions of clients. So is the Nando's way to ensure that the organisation is good and the people serving the organisation are good and the clients will reap the benefit? It seems to me that seems to be almost your ethos.
So I mean, in the very, very early days, Robbie and Fernando coined this phrase, which you will see in our central kitchen. It's the people that make the chicken who are the true heroes of our business. So taking care of them as a priority is obviously sensible and something we love to do. But we're a people business. So whether you are an employee, whether you are a customer, whether you are one of our partners, we genuinely do care about everything that is about you. So obviously during the lockdown there was not a lot of news that we could share with our customers, but as soon as there were opportunities to engage with them, we certainly took them, because we have, as you said, a very engaged base of customers, and we love to engage with them because they are funny and they are strong-minded and they give us great ideas. So during lockdown our focus was very definitely on our employees, but as soon as there was news to share with our customers, we certainly took that opportunity to engage with them as much as we could.
That is quite innovative, because I presume many of your competitors, many companies out there, people listening to us today might take the other route. You worry about the bank balance, you worry about your clients, the staff kind of get hurt in the middle, and there's there's retrenchments and short payments and things like that.
Do you know, what I would say is that we had an incredibly healthy and fruitful relationship with all of our competitors during this lockdown period. So, for example, there was an opportunity right in the early stages of lockdown to engage with all of the brands in the industry to say, how can we use what we have to feed people in communities who are under serious food distress? And the engagement was incredibly productive, incredibly thoughtful, very innovative. And we found ourselves in this weird world where we kind of formed this group of what we call frenemies, where people we're typically engaging with from a competitive point of view in a normal world. We were working with very closely to make sure that communities who were seriously disadvantaged and had some serious challenges were helped as much as we could possibly do so as an industry to make sure that they got food that was of a high quality and good for them.
That's great, and you deserve all the success you get for doing things like that. It just really is a lesson to all business people out there, do good by your community and the community will come to call.
Exactly right, and I must tell you a lot of credit does go to not just Nando's, but for the other folk in our industry who really did try their very best to do the right things.
Yeah. Now, did the COVID-19 crisis force you to make any changes to your business model, either in the short term or the long term?
We've always had a pretty strong multi-channel business model. So we have a blended business which is about dine-in, it's also about takeaway, and it's also about delivery. So that stood us in good stead because, of course, at various stages of the lockdown easing, you could exploit different channels differently. So that was helpful to the innovation and the drive of the team. Was we figured out a new channel called curbside collection, which is where people could drive up to the restaurants in their cars, having placed their order on the app, and the food would be delivered to their vehicle, and they could drive away with delicious Nando's food, perfectly prepared in a socially distanced way, in as safe an environment as was possible. So I think the short answer to your question is the fundamentals didn't change. The emphasis, though, obviously, when we couldn't open restaurants for dine-in, was a lot more about delivery and this new channel called curbside collection. And I think the blended way of doing business moving forward will probably change a little bit into the future, but fundamentally we're still about the best chicken being delivered to you in the best possible way, in the way that you find most suitable for you.
It's quite refreshing to hear a South African business that really lives its brand.
Yeah.
You guys, I think, are clearly, I think, front runners when it comes to being true to your brand.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. I mean, I think the brand is as strong as the integrity of the people who work within the brand, and we are very, very fortunate to have a purpose that is about changing lives together. So wherever possible, we think about that very deeply in the way we do business, the way we treat people, the way we treat customers, and it's very, very helpful to us. And as you say, I think it has stood us in very, very good stead in this environment.
And I presume none of this would be possible if you didn't have the total support of your shareholders.
Absolutely.
Because I think there's a couple of companies out there that are heavily focused on the bottom line, wouldn't necessarily have been jumping up and down at the opportunity to help the community before, and that's got to come at the cost of some profits.
Well, our shareholders have always been incredibly supportive of the business, and the alignment that we have not only with our shareholders but also with our global leadership team, I do genuinely believe is something that gives us a competitive advantage in the market. So when we speak of the purpose of the company being about changing lives together, that is something that the shareholders live and breathe every single day of their lives. And so the fact that we were able to make decisions with their support as with the velocity that we were able to, speaks volumes of their integrity, and it speaks volumes of the integrity that they have instilled within the broader organization. Because it never feels like an us and them environment. It always feels like, here's a group of people trying their very best to do the right things for the business, for the community, for the country, and then let's move forward quickly and get that done.
And you as the CEO have never sort of had one of those situations where you want to do one thing and the shareholders sort of say, Mike, hang on a second, it's nearly dividend time.
No. The conversations with the shareholders are thoughtful, because they are very smart people and they have a strong view on the world and the country and business in general. So if you're thinking that you're going to have an easy ride executing a harebrained scheme with our shareholders, you're going to have a problem. But if you are well prepared and you are using our values as a guideline, and you are doing the right thing for the people and for the customers and for the brand, the conversations and the decisions are always very, very fruitful.
And now many of the lay people, myself included, I'm sure people with us today, have heard horror stories out of the restaurant industry, restaurants closing, etc. For a brand as strong as Nando's, what do you see opportunities coming out of this? Or is this just a case of hoping to get back to where you were at the beginning of March?
We definitely see opportunities. I think that in times of economic constraint, customers are very definitely more thoughtful about where they spend their money, and I think that they will be looking for great value in whom they engage with, and we fundamentally offer great value. So I think that stands us in good stead. I think that the way that we have engaged with our Nandockers over this period means that we have a very motivated, incredibly committed group of people in the restaurants who will continue to deliver world-class service and the best chicken in the world. And again, I think that stands us in good stead.
Yeah, nobody's going to disagree about the chicken.
No.
You didn't close down any of your sites as a result of COVID-19?
No, we've kept them all running. I mean, there are a couple of areas in the country that are in pretty serious economic distress, and we of course are monitoring all of that. And in the situations where it has been impossible to reopen fully, we have moved the employees from that particular restaurant to other restaurants around it. So the commitment that we have made is to say the site is less important than the people. So make sure that the people are engaged productively within the brand, and we're hopeful that throughout South Africa everything will continue to grow toward normal trading levels as soon as possible.
And obviously your long-term outlook as we get through this, go back to growth.
We get through this, we go back to growth, and we continue to invest in our people and our brand and our communities and our country as we always have. Maybe in some instances in a slightly different way, and maybe in some instances the manifestation of the Nando's brand will be a little bit different, but the intrinsics of what we've always been about remain absolutely what we care about and what we are committed to.
I want to sort of raise an issue of focus.
Right.
Because to me, as a keen observer, we were talking before we began, I'm a keen observer of this industry because I come out of this background from childhood days, but the one thing that always struck me about Nando's is that of the food groups, there's always a temptation to start a different brand.
Right.
Now you're going to start a hamburger brand next door, that kind of thing. Nando's seems to resist that temptation.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you are committed to doing something to the very, very best of your ability, it's quite easy not to be distracted. We have within our organization a culture of always seeking to improve. So there's a restlessness within the team. And so that restlessness consistently drives us forward to do simpler things better as opposed to doing other things. So if you're saying, as a business, we want to serve the very best chicken in the world, that's an incredibly high bar. And so if you've got smart, passionate, motivated people focused on that as what you're trying to accomplish, the temptation to get into other businesses is probably not as strong as it might be if you didn't have that incredibly high level of dedication and commitment to this concept of be the very, very best that you can.
Yeah, because I presume while you're trying to make the best chicken in the world, it's not going to help that you're trying to learn how to make good pizzas.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a few people that may get distracted, and I suppose that's really a good lesson, and that's helped you this time, hasn't it?
Well, you know, and again, different folks think differently about the world and think differently about opportunities. The way that we think about the world is very simple. We're a people business. We are focused on chicken. We are focused on delivering healthy, fresh value every single day to the very best of our ability. And that is, it's easy to say that, but to do that every single day is not easy. Yeah. And so to remain focused on that is quite a noble thing to figure out. But certainly what works for us may not work for everyone else, and that's what makes the world a great place.
It is.
Yeah.
And it helps to have a great core product.
Of course.
I suppose that you can just keep on improving on. It doesn't kind of go out of fashion.
Right.
To many of the people over here, we are in the place where it all started.
We are indeed. We are in the Rosettenville Casa, the very first Casa, opened in 1987.
Yes.
So yeah, it's lovely to be here.
And I think I was in the first couple of customers, and it's great to see it still going, and
it's beautiful,
flourishing.
It's a little beacon in a wonderful neighborhood, and we're very proud of it.
Yeah, it's interesting in my preparation for today. You do sort of start thinking about things differently. You start thinking what questions to ask and what could come up. And to me, really, in sort of just thinking it through, the things that comes through is this great camaraderie, this great team spirit that you have.
Yeah.
As it's been cultivated over the years in Nandos now. We come in over here and everybody is sort of, you get a wonderful treatment as a person, not service necessarily, and we were coming in to form an interview. Now that you can't make up. That's the sort of thing that people they're doing that because they want to do it.
Right.
And I presume that is just something that, as you say, Nandockers, you've got a name for it, they're in the WhatsApp group, they want to be here, they're here for life, you're going to look after them.
Yeah, and they look after us.
Yeah.
So the concept of family for us as a business and an organization and a brand is incredibly important to us.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite unique. Because the thing about family is about consideration and shared values and consistent improvements and integrity and always doing what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
And if you are true to that, you will get the rewards for it. People innately are about goodness.
Yeah.
And if they feel that they are valued and trusted and rewarded, then they will give their very best to our customers, and they will share the very best of who they are with us.
Because it's got to be, you with all of your sites and restaurants and that you've got running, that you're going to have people that don't fit in.
Sadly, that does happen.
I presume what helps you is that the other people help you to weed out those people.
Yeah, I mean, with an organization with a very strong culture and a very strong sense of purpose, we are very definitely about everyone is welcome. So it doesn't really matter who you are, where you're from, but once you're in the family, understand that this is what we care about, this is how we think about the world, and this is what we expect from one another. And the thing about family is that it is innately an ecosystem that demands the very best of you. So, you think about strong family units, think about your own family unit. It's not just going to allow you to deliver not your best.
Yeah.
They're always going to demand your best of you because they want the best for you. And so within that environment, it's very good to bring new people in and to help them assimilate and contribute to the business.
Now, living through a crisis like this, we've spoken about what's worked and how, and we're sort of coming out of the other end, but it's got to take a toll on management.
Yep.
Whether, even if you've got everything sort of about as prepared as you can, it takes some toll. How have you handled it personally?
Well, again, I'm not going to put my hand up as the poster child for managing personal stress perfectly. I think what I have found very helpful is being able to engage a lot with my friends on the leadership team. The energy that I get from engagement with the Nandockers has been a massive tonic for me. It's probably the thing I've missed the most, is not being able to see everyone every single day. But the big upside for me with the lockdown has been I've been with my family more than I have been in my entire life. I mean, to have been with my wife and daughter every single day for as long as I have has been amazing. So those things, little small things, add up to a big thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've lived in a world where there has been a sharing of values, a sharing of commitment to a good outcome, and it has been, for a given definition of good, it has been good.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people are, watching this. Business is hard, and we've come out of a crisis. We weren't in great condition going into this.
Right.
As somebody that heads up a South African institution now, it's been handed to you. There's a bit of pressure involved. Nando's is part of the South African fabric. What advice? Is there one specific thing that you feel, because I mean, you haven't only been at Nando's, and you sort of look around. Do you see one thing that Nando's does that other companies sometimes, could improve on, could copy? Is there a particular thing? How do you create that?
I'm always incredibly reluctant to give advice to anyone else, but I think the thing that has been very, very powerful within Nando's is the concept of integrity.
And of course the structure is very flat.
Yes.
At Nando's. I mean, I've never seen an organisation of this size that runs such a flat structure. Right.
Again, if you're a people business, you want to be touched by as many people that you can from an engagement perspective. So you want to be exposed to ideas, and you want to be exposed to thinking, and a very hierarchical structure fundamentally does away with that. So, if I can, like this morning, have a conversation with the patrol about business and how the world is moving and what customers are thinking about and what the menu is looking like, then I'm in better shape moving forward to have those conversations with other leaders in the business and make decisions that are good for us.
And I suppose you're getting very honest feedback. If there's an item that's on the menu that is problematic, you're not necessarily going to know it from the boardroom, and you're definitely not going to know it if you stay in the boardroom.
No, you'll know it from the patrols.
Yeah.
You'll know it from being in the casa. You'll know it from speaking to the servers. You'll know it from speaking to the grillers, and you'll figure out what's working and what's not.
You're only going to get that feedback if they feel comfortable enough to tell you that item, this one is not working. It's very hard to produce, etc., etc.
Yeah, exactly right.
So that helps. I mean, I always say to people that when I hear people at meetings say, "Through you, Mr. Chairman," then you know that you're not at a very productive meeting. It's a very good chance because there are other people speaking their mind.
I think if those words were ever spoken at one of our leadership team meetings, everyone would look around in confusion, wondering where they were.
Now, Mike, I would not be forgiven for sitting down with you without speaking about the Nando's brands, the adverts.
Yes.
You were for many years the man in charge
of the adverts.
Yeah.
I had the privilege for a period to be looking after that. Yeah.
Some of the best. Now those have become, it's become once again part of the fabric. Everybody just the other day I received on WhatsApp an advert that must come from 10 years ago,
Right.
all the different ministry of stationery and,
Right.
and all
Yes.
the different blue
That
lights.
was actually one of the ads the team and I put together.
Yeah.
Right.
So now you take a chance like that, and I'm sure most of the viewers know the ad in question. We'll put a link to it just so people can relive it. Did you ever get blowback from anybody? Did anybody sort of get offended by those kind of adverts that really just are pulling the leg, especially of some of the South African things like our government and their blue lights?
So the short answer is yes. The longer answer is that what I mentioned to you earlier on about the engagement that we have with our customers is a very, very important part of what shapes the way that we think about creativity. So we will get many, many suggestions from our customer base to say, here is this thing that I'm really irritated by, or I'm really angry about, or I think is very, very funny. And we definitely embrace within Nando's this concept of giving a voice to people who sometimes don't feel like they have one. And so if you are shaped by your customers and you're addressing an issue that committed, proud South Africans care deeply about, then you can go forward with a fair degree of confidence, knowing that you are coming from a good place, and a place that is genuinely about being committed to the country. And so that helps, because with any piece of communication, unless it is incredibly bland, you will probably upset some people or offend some people, and that's never the intention. The intention is obviously to engage and to provoke a reaction, but not to take cheap shots or unnecessarily be unfair. And so that helps, because and I say this with nothing but truth, the quality of communication that has come out of Nando's over decades has been driven by this desire to represent truth to power in some cases, and it's based on feedback from customers and feedback from society at large to say this is an issue that needs to be addressed, it needs to be brought out into the open, and you don't need to address it with a sledgehammer. You can be more subtle and more elegant and a bit more cheeky than that. But if you're doing it from that space, then you can take some chances. And I know the folk who ran the advertising in the early days took many, many chances, and in many, many cases were spot on, and in some cases less so. And then I did it for a little bit, and then other way more talented people took over that mantle from me and have done a much better job than I did. But it's always not without trepidation, because you're not putting an advert together that is painted in shades of grey. It is very colourful, and it is very loud, and it is very clear about the tonality and the way we think about the world.
Now, just in terms of giving people some guidance, perhaps, from some things that have really worked in the Nando's stable. We spoke about the fact that Nando's have not been distracted.
Right.
They focused on the quality, the delivery, etc., and the success is there for all to see. But there's one area that Nando's has succeeded way beyond, I think, any other South African business, and that is internationalizing.
Right.
Taking the South African concept to another market and really doing well out of it. Now, I know you're in charge of Nando's South Africa, but obviously it started here, and right now I can't think of a South African brand that has travelled as successfully as Nando's. So clearly there's something that you're doing right. Can you speak to what has worked particularly well in that strategy when so many of your competitors and other people in similar or in other industries have tried and failed?
I think the reason for the success of the Nando's brand in countries outside of South Africa has been driven by massive degrees of talent in the people who have taken that business to these new territories. I think it also speaks volumes about the globalness of our culture and our values and our purpose. There is a universality to how we think about the world and how we think about business. And I think if you have got incredibly talented people who can take that and land it, you have a recipe for success. You know, it's the alignment of values, so no matter where in the world you are, this is what you care about and this is what you think about. And because you are a very talented leader with a very talented team who cares deeply about customers and people, you're going to do well.
And has there been a use of a similar marketing strategy there, or is it just does the chicken do the talking?
Chicken does the talking, the people do the talking. And again, because of the caliber of talent that we have in the leaders throughout the world, they will shape the communication to make it the most appropriate to the market that they're in. So there will be variances, and there will be differences in the way channels are used and the engagement mechanisms, but the intrinsics are still there.
So that's pretty much up to the management of those particular
absolutely.
To get their own message out.
Absolutely. I mean, it would be strange to have the caliber of people that we have running the countries throughout the world and not giving them the freedom to innovate and do the things that are right for their businesses, because they innately understand better their consumers and their channels and the tonality that is most appropriate for them.
So irreverent, cheeky adverts may not work in the Middle East as well as they work in South Africa.
Well, it's interesting because in some cases that works incredibly well, and in some cases in very, very large markets that does work well. But again, driven by the talent and the caliber of the people that work in those markets and live in those markets, they are so much better qualified to make those decisions than anyone else, and because of the fact that our global leadership team fundamentally is about empowering great people to do great things, they're allowed to do what's best for their business and the markets that they operate in.
So in conclusion, it seems like the main points that come out of the Nando's experience: stay focused,
yes,
build the team,
yes, invest
heavily in the team,
yes,
and the brand,
yes,
commitment to quality,
yes,
and after you put those steps in place, any crisis can hit you, and your team is going to handle the heavy shots in the beginning, right? And you'll be there at the end with the support of everybody, starting with your team.
And I think one incredibly important point is to be very clear on who you are, be very clear on the principles that guide you throughout normal business, but particularly through a crisis, and be very clear about what is going to shape your decisions in terms of when you look back on a challenging piece of your history, how do you want to feel about it? And in our case, we were very clear. We said, when we look back on this period in our history, we want to be nothing but proud of everything that we have done. And that has been incredibly useful to us.
Well, Mike, I've got to say that you can be very proud of what you've done. It's a great story, some great lessons for anybody watching this today, and certainly I can only wish you great success in the future. Thank you so much for sitting with us this morning.
Thank you very much, Mike. I really appreciate the time. It's been lovely. Thank you.